Welcome back to the Cozy Rosy Crochet channel, and today I'm going to be showing how to work your ribbing onto your rose cardigan as part of the crochet along. Now you can use this technique for any crochet project that you're adding some single crochet ribbing to, but specifically I'm going to be showing you how to decrease on your stitches before adding your ribbing on. If you're just here to learn how to add the ribbing, you can skip ahead to that section. Now I've already completed this sleeve on my cardigan, and you can see how the ribbing has brought in the edge of the sleeve ever so slightly, but that was mainly done by adding in a row of decreases first. So this is a short length sleeve and I've done them for the same length, and I'm just getting ready to work my decrease row prior to adding on my ribbing. It's really important that you have the right side of your pattern facing you to start this pattern. So if you have to turn to work around with the right side of the project facing you, do that now. So for me, if you've worked your cardigan the same as me, I do have I'm always referring to the bottom of this cardigan for myself. I've got the in as my right side on that first row. So I have the right side of my cardigan facing me. For the first row of our ribbing, we're going to decrease the number of stitches that we have so that our ribbing brings in the edge of our sleeve a little bit more. I've slip stitched a join on my final round of my sleeve. I'm going to start by making a chain of 1. We're going to work 1 single crochet into the same stitch as our chain 1, and then work 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches. So that's 2 and 3. We're going to reduce our stitch count in this row by working a single crochet 2 together across the next 2 stitches. So we insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over and bring a loop up, insert our hook into the next stitch, yarn over to bring up a 3rd loop. We then yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We're going to repeat this around, working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. The reason I paused is because it looks like I have to work into that stitch, but we have actually decreased into it. Hope you can see there's something coming out of that stitch, so this is the next one to work into. So we're working 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. And then we decrease across the next 2. So we insert our hook, bring a loop up, insert our hook into the next stitch, bring a 3rd loop up, before we yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. We work 1 single crochet into each of the next 4 stitches. That's 3 and 4. Before repeating that decrease once again across the next 2. So we insert, bring a loop up, insert into the next, bring a 3rd loop up, before we yarn over and pull through all 3. So continue to repeat that all the way around back to where we started, and I'll meet you at the end of this round. Once you've completed your last decrease, you may find that you have not quite enough stitches to work another decrease. That's absolutely fine. Just work 1 single crochet into each of the remaining stitches back to your first stitch. We're going to skip the slip stitch and the chain 1 and slip stitch into the top of that first single crochet that we made just by inserting our hook, pulling through and straight through the loop on your hook. If you are making the longer length sleeve and you want to bring in your cuff even more, which I would recommend, you can repeat this decrease row, but reduce the number of stitches in between. So if you are making a longer length, for this round, you would continue to work in the same direction. There's no turning in this part of the pattern. You'd work 1 single crochet into the same and next 2 stitches before working your decrease across the next 2 stitches. You'd be working 1 single crochet into each of the next 3 stitches before decreasing across the next. If after that round you still want to bring your cuff in even more, you can repeat it but reduce the number of stitches between your decreases by another one. So you just work 2 single crochets before you work your decrease. If you need any further assistance with working your cuffs, you can head to the description box and you'll find a link over to the pattern where there's more details about those decreases for the longer length cuff. If after that first decrease you're quite happy with how much that's brought that in, it is important to remember that the ribbing will bring in your sleeve even more. So if I hold these 2 sleeves together, you can see how much more open the original sleeve opening is compared to where the ribbing is. I do have quite a generously sized arm, and obviously if you're making a smaller size than me, your armhole will still be smaller still. So our ribbing is going to be worked in rows, but they're going to be going up and away from our crochet and coming back down. So we're almost working up and down along an additional chain. Now you can make your crochet ribbing as long as you like. For instance, this cardigan that I'm wearing has quite a large cuff, and you can make your cuff as long or as wide as you want. On my shorter sleeve, I only have quite a small cuff because it's just a little bit of additional detail. If I was making the longer sleeve, I'd probably do double the length of my cuff. So this is about 1 inch long. I'd do a 2 or a 3 inch cuff. This is pretty much a 3 inch cuff that I'm wearing on this knitted cardigan that I bought. So if you can imagine, you're doing quite a few more chains. So for this short ribbing here, we're only doing a chain of 5. If you wanted to do a 2 inch, I would do a chain of 10 or 11. And if you wanted an even longer cuff, just extend your chain to the length that you want to work your ribbing. For this example, I'm going to be making a chain of 5 for my short sleeve. So we yarn over and pull through for chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We're then going to work back down our chain, starting in our second chain from hook. Remembering this loop doesn't count. This is our first chain, and we're inserting our hook into the second chain to work 1 US single crochet. So we insert under that top loop of our second chain, yarn over to bring our loop up, yarn over and pull through 2, and then we're working 1 single crochet into each chain across. So that's number 2, 3, and there's number 4 for me. It's a little bit flappy and fiddly as we start this, and what we're going to do is once we've worked back down our chain, we're going to anchor our ribbing to the next stitch. So you can see that we have our chain coming out of this stitch here. We're going to insert our hook into the next stitch and create a slip stitch to anchor that in place. And then we're going to slip stitch into the next stitch because that's where our row will be parallel to. We're going to turn our project, or turn our row of ribbing ready to work into our stitches. So we need to ignore the 2 slip stitches, and we're going to be working up those 4 stitches again. So we ignore slip stitch 1 and 2 and insert your hook into the back loop only of that first stitch. And we're going to work 1 single crochet into the back loop only of each stitch across. So that's 2, 3, and 4, and that is row 2. We chain and turn to work back down our stitches again, and once again we are only going to work into the back loop only. You might need to tilt your work towards you to be able to find just that back loop, and we're working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. So that's 2, 3, and there's number 4. Again, we're going to anchor our row onto the actual cardigan itself. So we insert our hook and slip stitch, and then we slip stitch into the next stitch across, ready to turn our work and work our next row of ribbing. we're going to skip those 2 slip stitches and insert our hook into the back loop only of that first stitch and work 1 single crochet into the back loop only of each stitch across. We can chain 1 and turn, ready to work back down again, working 1 single crochet into each stitch across. You can see the start of our ribbing here, and it really is quite easy and repetitive. We're just doing the same thing all the way down. The most frustrating thing is finding that first stitch. So I really do tilt my work kind of towards me before inserting my hook into that first stitch and working 1 single crochet into each of the stitches across. If you started with a larger chain, just make sure you're achieving the same stitch count as you had in row 1 and continuing to anchor your work into that next stitch across. You can see we have slip stitched into this stitch here. It's probably not quite as obvious, but if you were to hold your ribbing against your project, you can see you slip stitched. So we're going to slip stitch into the next, and then we're going to slip stitch again into the next stitch, ready to start our next row. Now I'm not chain oneing, I'm not doing a chain 1 at this point. We're just skipping those 2 slip stitches, ready to work into our 4 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. Chain 1 to turn, and you're ready to continue. Now we're going to continue to repeat this all the way around our armhole till we reach our last row or our last stitch. And I'm going to meet you once you've worked all of your ribbing, ready to seam our ribbing and secure our final row. So I'm just working my final row before I'm going to seam my ribbing. That's number 4. Probably the most awkward row, this one. Because as you can see, I've run out of stitches to work into. That's my slip stitch. Before we join, I'm going to just slip stitch into the same stitch as that last row, just so I can turn my work. And I'm going to bring my edge together. Now, as you can see, I'm folding my project so that the wrong side of my pattern is facing. If they were to be folded like that, first of all, it's impossible to work that row, but I want to be able to have my seam on the inside, and at present this is the right side of my project, so I'm going to fold my seam outwards so that both the wrong side of my seam is showing. And what we're going to do is simply work through the back loop of our stitch of the row we've just worked and into the starting chain of our ribbing. So this first row here that we can see on the original row that we made is that original chain that we made. So I'm just inserting my hook through there, and I'm going to slip stitch through both sides, working through 1 stitch and through one side of my chain. You can see where that thread's, where the yarn is coming out. So we're going to insert our hook into the next chain and slip stitch again. Got 1 more stitch here, so we can slip stitch into that next chain. And then finally we have 1 final stitch, and we can slip stitch to the top of our chain. And I'm going to make a little chain 1 to secure. Grab my scissors. Once I've cut that yarn, I can just bring that through, and that puts my seam on the wrong side of my project. So now all that's left to do is me to weave in that final end to finish that sleeve off, and repeat the ribbing on my other sleeve. And once you've finished your other ribbing on your other sleeve, you have completed your rose cardigan. Don't forget, of course, I will want to see your completed cardigans. I'd love to know which sleeve option you went for. I'd love to know how much you've brought your ribbing in, and of course that you've woven all your ends in. So come on over and see me either in the Facebook community group, or you can tag me on Instagram, TikTok, or comment below telling me how much you've loved making your very own rose cardigan. If you would love to share a picture with me, you can either email that through to me. And of course, you have a little while before we have our prize draw from everyone who completes their rose cardigan. As always, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you in the next video.